All right, Nathan, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, man. It's great to have you. So, for those of you who haven't heard, Nathan Chan is the founder of Foundr Magazine. It's a digital magazine, the leading digital magazine for young entrepreneurs. And in the magazine, every month they feature like some of the top entrepreneurs in the world, like Richard Branson, just amazing, amazing people. So they've done some really cool things in the digital publishing space. So that's why I really want to have him on the show today. So thanks so much for being here, Nathan.
It's an absolute pleasure, Tom. Thank you so much for having me and taking the time.
Yeah. So tell us about how you got started in the digital magazine space. Like, what even is a digital magazine?
It's a great question. So, two parts. I guess first thing first is a digital magazine essentially is a magazine that is paperless, that is, I guess, content packaged up with a front cover and a theme and I guess a series of texts and images and videos, and it's can be accessed on tablets or mobile devices, and also digital magazines are considered on the computer as well. So if you can like read a PDF kind of thing, as long as I guess a magazine is something that has content, images. It has a strong focus on a certain topic that's very specific about a magazine, and front cover. For some reason, you have a front cover to really display and showcase what you can expect. So it's like almost like like a physical product has packaging. A magazine has its front cover to kind of give you a little bit of insight what's inside or what you can expect. And yeah, that's what a digital magazine is. So Foundr, we're not on computer. We're targeted and on only mobile devices and tablets, and we're on the App Store and Google Play Store. And pretty much Foundr, as you said, it's a magazine targeted at young entrepreneurs, early stage startup founders, aspiring and novice entrepreneurs. And I started and got into this space because I felt that there was a need that needed to be filled. I felt that there wasn't really a magazine in the space that an aspiring entrepreneur at the time, like someone that hadn't even started a business before, could relate to. A publication that was reporting, and not even just reporting, but showcasing content and information packaged up that spoke to an entrepreneur that hadn't started a business, an entrepreneur that wanted to start a business but didn't know where to start, and an entrepreneur that needed tactical, strategical, tactical based, actionable based stuff that you could just take away and implement in your business. Because I read, often, I'd looked into reading and read, Entrepreneur, Fast Company, Forbes, HBR, and it was really for people that had a business and really people that, were making a lot of money, and it was difficult to relate to and find something that really spoke my language. So I went down this path of creating Foundr Magazine, and I launched that March 5th, 2013, and haven't really looked back since, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. So yeah, I see a lot of parallels between digital magazines and ebooks. Like that's how I got my start in the publishing business, was with ebooks. And like you said, it's like you have this front cover, like ebooks, you have like your cover, but it's not covering anything. You know what I mean? It's just an image that you use because that's what people in the industry use. But it does make a big difference. And like you said, magazines, just content, it's images, video now. And that's what goes into creating the product. And so what I'm curious about is how has that product evolved? Because, for ebooks, I see a lot of people doing shorter ebooks, more targeted books. When you're self-publishing, you don't have to worry about editors at a big publishing company telling you what to do and exactly, how long your book needs to be and adding fluff and stuff like that. So how has kind of that digital format changed kind of the magazine industry in general?
Yeah. Look, so I'm going to be very clear. I started Foundr while I was working my day job. I built it up till I could leave my day job, and I knew nothing about publishing a magazine. I knew nothing about editorial design, anything of the sort. I knew nothing about entrepreneurship. So I just created something where, like the magazine Foundr, it's like any other traditional publication, because I'm just creating something from knowing nothing about what a traditional magazine is supposed to look like. So one thing about us is, you know, most magazines are quite big, you know, 120 pages, 150, 200 pages. Foundr, you can consume in about 4 to 5 hours if you listen to all the interviews. So there's actual audio interviews inside each feature as well. But yeah, it's about 60 to 70 pages, sometimes 50 pages, generally around 60 to 70 pages, and we have about 10 to 12 articles and pieces. So it's something that you could just read like just before you go to bed or on the train, or just like easy to pick up, easy to consume. It's not that intense. And you know, when it comes to, you know, compared to other magazines, I can only tell you what I like to read and things that I've came up with creatively. It's interesting that you talk about ebooks, because it's so true. I never thought of it like that, but ebooks are very, very similar to magazines, except I guess magazines tend to have people on their front cover, and I don't know, it's such an interesting way to think about it. But you know, for us, you know, we do interesting things like we have this one segment. So I guess that's one thing about a magazine compared to an ebook, is a magazine has a form of consistency, like a series. So, you know, Foundr's a monthly publication. So when somebody subscribes to Foundr, we make a promise that if they're paying for a subscription every month, that they'll get a magazine issue every month, and it's going to be covering these kinds of topics. And one of our regular segments is called the Virtual Mentor. And pretty much inside the magazine, you can press a button and it just opens up an email, like, you know, the native email client on your iPhone or whatever. And you can send an email to vm@foundrmag.com, and you can ask a question. So like a letter from the editor. And we get questions every day from people saying, this is what I'm struggling with. And we showcase the best questions and the best answers in future issues. So it kind of, I guess, generates a feedback loop, and can come back and read the next issue and stuff like that. Like, that's one of many segments that we have that you wouldn't see in a traditional publication or any publication at all. This is just something that I came up with. You know, another thing is, at the end of every magazine issue, there's this segment called actionable items, or action items, actionable takeaways. So we summarize all the articles, and we have the like value pieces, like leverage pieces. If you read this article, this is what you need to do. Now you understand the power, go off and do this, or this is a lesson you can take away. So that's another thing. Like, you know, Forbes, Entrepreneur, they wouldn't do stuff like that. They really are about the story. We're about the story too, but we've got a strong form of, I guess, providing as much value as we can and giving people stuff that they can take away. So yeah, does that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I love that. I love what you're doing, because you're making the content more accessible to people, and that's kind of like what I try to do with my ebooks, is just making it more useful for the reader, because readers don't care about me, you know, like they don't care about my struggles and my challenges and my story and my pets and my wife and stuff like that. You know, like they just want to know, like, you know, how can I start my business? How can I grow my business? How can I sell more books? How can I market online? Like, people have problems. They want solutions to their problems. They don't want, you know, necessarily all the story. And you know, some stories are great and you know, can be really inspiring, but when all you have is story and you don't have, like you said, those actual takeaways, it can get pretty boring pretty fast, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, we're all about the story too, but we're very, very strong on the value piece, and the takeaways and what you can learn, and, you know, how can it help you. If you read a story about a $100 million founder, and that's all you get is the story of how he did it, or not even just how he did it, just the story of what he did, and none of that how-to stuff, then we've kind of done a disservice to our readers. That's how I'm trying to structure it.
That's so awesome, man. That's great. So I know you've interviewed some huge people like Richard Branson, Tim Ferriss. Like, how do you land these, you know, superstar entrepreneurs who are, you know, probably hounded by the press constantly? How did you actually land an interview with these people?
Great question. So there's a few things here. When you want to speak to somebody that, like you said, are constantly hassled, first things first, you need to look like the press. Like if you don't look like the press, it'll make things even harder. So that's the first lesson in itself. You have to look like the press, or you have to be a knowledge source, a reporting source, a source that has an audience. You have to be some form of press. And then the second piece of that puzzle is finding the right person. So, that's a great question, like Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss is one of my heroes. Like, I wouldn't be speaking with you right now if I didn't read The 4-Hour Workweek. That was a game-changing book for me. And I was pitching him cold, like, ever since I started the magazine. Not even since I started the magazine, probably about 6 months after I started, because I needed to build that confidence. So, I was pitching him cold, in those first 6 months. Never got back to him. It was really difficult. Really struggling to get through to his assistant. They get thousands of emails a day, all that kind of stuff. But then recently, he was looking for press. He was looking to get press for his show. And I knew that if I pitched cold to his assistant, that wasn't the right person. The right person was, in fact, the PR agency that he paid to get him interviews. So that's the difference. With Richard Branson, whole different kettle of fish. Richard Branson, I tracked down his head of PR at Virgin and just simply pitched, we're a media outlet. We have at least 25,000 now to this day. We have 25,000 super engaged monthly readers. But back then we had like a few thousand. And still I pitched and said, this is where we're at. We'd love to feature Richard on a front cover issue. And, I just asked and it happened. I wish there was some secret sauce. The real secret sauce for getting Richard Branson was making a lot of phone calls and finding the gatekeeper, his head of PR, and pitching her, and also being a news source and having your own magazine. So it's funny because some people look at me and they're like, oh, how's this guy Nathan getting all these interviews? But it's really because I use Foundr as that vehicle to get me a lot of the interviews. I think that there's a lot to be said in having a magazine. It can be very, very powerful. But yeah, it just comes down to one, finding the gatekeeper, the important person, whether that's an agency or a PR person or the assistant or pitching cold or whatever. You just got to be persistent and find that key person of influence that will be able to help make that decision. And then two, you have to see where you can find value, like a fair exchange in value. That's really, really important because people, I know interviews are really hot and people aren't going to do interviews most of the time as a favor unless you're friends with that person or you have a like-minded connection or anything like that. It comes back to that person's business goals. So you've got to see where you can help that person. And then three, you've got to have an audience. You've got to have some form of influence. You've got to be able to, I guess, showcase that you are the press.
Yeah, that's such a great point. You made, so many great points there, but I love what you said about, having, just have your own magazine, like you make it sound so simple, right? But really it's like creating like a project, like whether it's a magazine or a book or a podcast show or a blog, it's like creating something valuable with an audience that people care about, that it creates a community around it that people can connect to, that then you can bring in these influencers like Richard Branson and Tim Ferriss, whoever, and share their message with your audience and at the same time get massive value for yourself out of it. So it's really a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, that's it. Like, I think that's pretty spot on, man. I think any business deal, any partnership, you always have to look for a fair exchange in value. You want to make it so, that both parties get looked after.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that, man. Absolutely. So I know one of the ways you've created massive, massive value in your business is with Instagram. I know you guys went from basically 0 to over 150,000 followers on Instagram in like 6 months. And that's absolutely incredible. And for those who, have never used Instagram before, never heard of it, never used it, like, in comparison to Facebook, the engagement level is like 10 times higher. So, 150,000 followers on Facebook, not really a big deal. 150,000 on Instagram, that can create a massive, massive business. So how did you do that?
Yeah, so I could sit here and talk about Instagram all day, Tom, but the main pieces of the puzzle is with Instagram, it's all about the content you produce. So for the Foundr Instagram, we post pretty much a lot of quotes, and quotes work really, really, really well. And if you're not in the entrepreneurial niche, you don't have to post quotes or whatever. It comes down to knowing what works really, really well and what really resonates with your audience. So first things first, you've got to get your content down pat and really know your audience. The second piece of the puzzle is consistency. We post in those 6 months that we've grown that channel, we post at least, a few times a day. Now we're posting at least 6 times a day. So it's all about consistency, and you can build that momentum up. Like from the momentum that we've built with our account, we should be at 500,000 by the end of this year. So you just got to keep building on that momentum, keep being consistent. And that's with anything in business. You've just got to be consistent, whether it's a podcast or it's a blog, whether it's a magazine on subscription. You've got to be consistent. You've got to show up. You've got to keep serving your audience, your market every single day. You've got to contribute to that market, and that's how you become an influencer in itself. And the next piece of that puzzle was hashtags. Hashtags are really key. A quick win for anybody listening to this is when you're posting on Instagram, make sure when you post up an image, you write as a comment. So you post the image, you write as a comment all your 30 hashtags. So you max out the hashtags, use at least 30 hashtags that are relevant to your niche in the comments. And I promise you'll notice a massive increase in the engagement of your post. So that's just a quick win there. And then another piece is, the quotes, they just share virally. Just so many people share it with their friends, and so many people screenshot them and repost them. And that's really massive. And then another piece of that puzzle also is getting other like-minded accounts to share your content. And there's an acronym for that called S4S, which stands for share for share. And share for shares is really, really big on growing your account really fast. So you have to do a lot of business development, like you would with any business. You want to do partnerships, or you want to dominate any niche or marketplace. You've got to be on the radar of other influencers, and you've got to be cross promoting and collaborating. So that's what we're doing with all the market leaders for the business entrepreneurial accounts on Instagram. Always got to find that like-minded value, and that would be in how many followers, how much engagement you have, how big your audience is. But you can definitely do that and work your way up. And then that's in a very, very short, summarized, roundabout way how we're doing it.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. It's just so awesome. And I mean, I love what you said about the consistency, like consistently adding value every single day, contributing. And like that is really the key to success in not just Instagram, but any area of life, any area of business. It's amazes me how often you'll see authors or entrepreneurs, start something, and a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years later, they get burned out, they quit, they give up. And they were like so close to breaking through to that next level, so close to being massively successful, but they just quit. They weren't consistent with their activity. And everyone starts at zero. You start a Foundr at zero, you start your Instagram account at zero, I started at zero, everyone starts at zero, It's what you do from there that's going to make the difference. And it's the consistency that's going to build you from zero to millions and beyond.
Yeah, that's right, man. Like, one thing my mom taught me is if you're going to do a job, you do it properly. You see it out, you see it through.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's great advice for sure. That's awesome, man. So I want to hear a little bit more about kind of what inspired you to get started as an entrepreneur. Because, when you started Foundr Magazine, you were working full-time in your job. What was it that drove you to start the business and really grow the business?
Yeah, so I was working in a day job in IT, doing IT support. And it was, I've been doing that for 5 years. And I pretty much did what I was told to do, like what society told me to do. You know, go to school, get good grades, go to university, get a job. And that just wasn't enough for me. I always knew deep down that there was so much more for me, but I just couldn't quite put my finger on what that was. And, you know, much like most people, I just got somehow caught into this world of entrepreneurship, and I, you know, thought and used to get excited and think, oh, you know, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to do this. It's going to be so exciting. And it took me quite a few years to actually launch something, Tom. And when I say quite a few years, you know, I read the 4-Hour Workweek. That book's been out for like almost 10 years now. I read it in, I think, 2009. And it took me a very long time, maybe not 2009, probably about 2010, 2011, but it took me a very long time to just get out there and put something out there. And I was just frustrated. I was frustrated with my situation. I was frustrated with the job. I was frustrated with doing work that didn't fulfill me. So I thought, well, you know, why not create? You know, I had a lot of ideas, and you know, I want to learn what it takes to become a successful entrepreneur. Why not, you know, create something that helps people and showcase my journey and my findings along the way? So it was quite a selfish kind of scratching my own itch mission that drove me in the beginning. But now it's much more than that.
That's so awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, I think that's for me at least. Is this definitely, you know, it's very similar to my story, and I think a lot of other entrepreneur stories where, you know, you start out and you're just like, you just want something different for your life. You know, you just want a better life, and you know, it's like you said, it's kind of a very selfish, self-centered way to start a business. But then you realize in business, or at least I realized early on in business, that look, if I want to be successful in business, I can't just focus on me. I have to focus on my customers, on, you know, my audience, on my readers, on my listeners. I have to help them. I have to add value to their lives. And the more value I add to other people's lives, the more money the business will bring in. So it's like, you know, it's, if you want to be, you know, financially successful, focus all your effort on helping people. And that's how you do it.
Yeah, that's right. The amount of money you make is equivalent to how well you serve your community.
Absolutely, man. Totally agree. That's brilliant. That's really brilliant. Awesome.
Thanks,
So tell us, I mean, what else are you going to do to serve your community? I mean, what's going on? What are your plans for the future with Foundr Magazine, and, you know, maybe other businesses or investments or things that you're working on?
Yeah. So it's funny, when I left my day job, I thought that this was about a year ago now. I thought that I could start multiple businesses. I had all these other ideas and stuff like that for business ideas. I want to do a physical product and stuff like that. But then I realized, like, Foundr is just a magazine, and I need to focus just on Foundr because there's a massive opportunity here. So I realized Foundr is much more than just a magazine. It's a media brand. So I'm going to create a whole ton of assets under that brand. So, you know, since I left my job, I created our podcast. We have quite a big focus on building our social channels. We have quite a big focus on driving traffic to our site and doing content marketing and producing brilliant pieces of content. And now, most recently, we're starting to launch a series of training products. So what I've realized is Foundr, I want it to be a really big, powerful platform that serves millions of entrepreneurs, and we're helping millions of entrepreneurs. So that's where I'm taking it, man. I have a goal to reach 1 million entrepreneurs by the end of this year across all of our channels. So we have, you know, over 1 million people over all of our channels. So Instagram, Facebook, the magazine, Twitter, social channels, the email database, the traffic on our site, you name it. So I'm much like you. I just want to keep serving as many people as I can. But then also, you know, I love this business stuff, and I believe to build the business even further, the magazine is just really an entry-level product. We need more products, man. So, you know, I've constantly polled our audience. I speak to our community and you know, our customers every single day, that they want more. They want more from Foundr. They want more hands-on training and stuff like that. So we're launching an Instagram course. That's going to be our first thing, called Instagram Domination. And then we're going to launch a few other products as well in the near future. So yeah, man, that's what's in store for us. Just building a really big platform and serving as many people as we can. And yeah, just keep trying to grow our brand and become a leading influencer in the entrepreneurship niche, especially for people that are looking to get started or have just started something and need help.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man. That's great. I love what you said about, you know, really creating a media brand and, you know, expanding on different platforms. You know, I was speaking at a writers conference, you know, several months ago in Portland, and one of the speakers there, the other speakers there, was talking about transmedia, and basically transmedia in the publishing industry is basically when you take, you know, a book and you turn it into a movie and an app and maybe a board game and, you know, maybe a podcast show and a blog and a website and like all this different stuff, you know, basically taking your story, your content, your business and expanding it into different channels, you know, to increase your revenue, to increase your exposure and to really grow the overall brand. And I think that's such a smart strategy today. I mean, with the internet now and with, you know, the iPhone and Amazon and, you know, Facebook, and there's all these different platforms that already have, you know, hundreds of millions of customers on those platforms. It only makes sense to make yourself available in those places, you know, so if you want to grow your business, if you want to sell more books or more magazines or whatever. So I love that you're really focusing on that strategy. I think that's really, really brilliant. And I think a lot of other authors and entrepreneurs listening would really benefit from taking a very similar approach to expanding across multiple platforms.
Yeah, well, thank you, Tom. I think, yeah, that's where it's at. You know, if you run a magazine, whether it's a print or digital magazine, and you just focus on that magazine, I think you're losing out in the long run. I think it's all about building a multifaceted brand, a multifaceted platform. In fact, not just a brand, but a platform where, yeah, you're serving on many different platforms. And you're right, there's so many different marketplaces. There's so many different other platforms where you can leverage your content. You know, it's one thing, you know, we talk about having influence in like all sorts of different platforms, but it doesn't have to be that much work. Like, I'll give you an example. With the magazine, you know, I do an interview over Skype. That Skype interview gets turned into a feature story and it's recorded and it sits inside the magazine. But then where else can that audio interview go once it's edited? Naturally on a podcast, you know what I mean? So that's two platforms. I've hit two birds with one stone, you know what I mean? And then what else can I do with that interview? Because it's on the App Store and it's not referenced by Google, I could put that interview as a guest post somewhere on another website or on our own website or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, or I can put half of it or whatever. I could turn that whole interview into just a short form, you know, Q&A or a lessons thing or whatever, like a lessons piece or whatever. So you can do so much with your content. If you're in the content game, you need to find leverage with your content as much as you can and repurpose it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I love what you're talking about, repurposing. I think that's absolutely crucial, and it just makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of people, you know, we get so myopic, we get so focused on, you know, writing the book or you know, posting on Facebook or whatever channel that we're focused on, and we forget that there's all these other channels out there. And like you said, you know, it takes very little work to take, you know, an audio interview from your magazine and turn it into a podcast. It takes some work, but in comparison to creating a whole nother interview and doing that whole thing over again, it's very little. And I think what you're really doing is you're basically leveraging your time and your assets, because what you create are these intellectual assets, you know, these interviews, these stories, these articles, ideas, actionable takeaways. And, you know, and the question I always ask is, okay, well, where is my customer? Where is my reader? How can I connect with them? And, you know, if they're on Amazon, if they're on the Google Play Store, on iTunes or wherever else, you know, you want to be there. You want your content to be there to reach your audience and just, you know, taking advantage of all those opportunities. I mean, there's so many opportunities now. It's like you can get overwhelmed by, you know, all the different channels, but I think if you're only focused on one channel, I think you're definitely missing out on a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing you can do is focus, like I agree, have multiple channels and focus on multiple channels, but focus on one at a time. So like, for example, with Foundr, the magazine, I just focused on that channel the whole time I was in my day job for about a year. And then when I left, I moved on to the next channel where it was the podcast and then the blog stuff. And then we've been focusing on that channel. And then we moved to another channel, which was Instagram. And then after that channel, we're going to focus on, other channels. So, we're going to focus on Google Plus and Pinterest. So I think it's important to learn a channel, do really well on it, and then move on to the next one. It's difficult to do all of them at the same time, if you know what I mean. So I'm all for focusing on multiple channels, but focus on one at a time, I think, with the intention to move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's such a great action step takeaway right there. And I think that it's really awesome you share that. Because like you said, if you do a job, like your mom said, if you're going to do a job, do it well. It's really hard to do a great job on Instagram if you're also trying to learn Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest and everything else at the same time, So like you said, it's much better to say, hey, the next 90 days, the next, 6 months, I'm going to focus, maybe not 100%, but 80% on this one channel. I'm going to learn everything I possibly can about it. And then I'm going to master that, create a system around it, maybe hire an assistant or, a team around it to automate a lot of that stuff. So you can free your time up to learn something else. But I think it's really crucial, like you said, to really invest the time in learning and really master those channels before you, try to do everything at the same time and do a really poor job at everything.
Yeah, that's right. That's where it's at, bro.
Yeah, that's great, man. Awesome. Well, you shared, just a wealth of wisdom with us today, Nathan. Thank you so much, man. Before you go, tell us where people can find out more about you and the work that you're doing, and also your awesome course on Instagram.
Yeah, sure thing. So yeah, foundrmag.com is our home base, and it's FOUNDR, no E, MAG.com. So foundrmag.com. And yeah, if you want to find out about the Instagram course, you just go to foundrmag.com/GETIG, GETIG. And yeah, if people want to contact me, they can do so at nathan@foundrmag.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nathan. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for your time, Tom. I really appreciate it too.
Awesome, man. Great job.